So hey guys, this is me Dwivedi and I'm super excited today because my friend Rick and his two other co-founder are coming on XR podcast and we're gonna have this interesting conversation about virtual reality, privacy in virtual reality, the marketing ways and so many more things to discuss are there. So without any further delay, let's invite Rick, Sam and Dwight on the podcast.
Thank you for having us.
Good.
Yeah, super great.
Yeah. So it's excited to see this amazing panel and yeah, we can start talking about you guys. So Rick connected with me just a few days back. We connected through Clubhouse and yeah, we had awesome conversation and Rick instantly I was like, okay, I have to get this guy because he has super knowledgeable and we need to get him on the podcast. So, okay, so Rick, let's just introduce your company. You are running one company called Venture, and Venture does a lot of virtual reality and augmented reality products for a lot of clients. So, would love to know about your company Venture, and you guys are co-founders of this. So, yeah, would love to talk about this. Yeah, Rick.
Well, Venture, we started. Venture is it's a long story. I could say it was like out of a fairy tale, because it all started with just introducing people. The main goal, one of the main goals of Venture is to properly, teach people a proper adoption method of VR because something about virtual reality has made people adopt it slower.
Okay, so virtual reality gets adoption slower, and that's with keeping that in mind, you started Venture. So, would love to know from other co-founders as well. What was your perspective on this? How this company got started? What is the vision of the company, and where you guys are taking it forward?
So ideally we came together because we were all interested in virtual reality. I think that the key there was Rick. He was like super persistent in culture about VR. So, we just happened to be in a lot of rooms, mostly tech rooms, I say, futuristic or future looking rooms and stuff on Clubhouse. And one day I just sort of bought a headset and I'm like, let me try this thing out. So, coming from like the tech world, I just sort of embraced it. It kind of blew my mind, and Rick had a very specific way of like guiding us and introducing us to the whole VR thing. So that gave us the confidence to say, well, at least let's meet up and see what we can do, right? And we did just that. So me, Dwight, and Rick met up in a room, and I think in 45 minutes later we had a name for the company. And ever since then, it's just been, things have just fallen into place, to be quite honest. I've been in the development industry and, and tech in New York City. So it takes naturally and organically, it takes, I don't know, the stars need to align in a way. So that's kind of what happened with Venture. And yeah, now we're here on your podcast. So that's like a little bit of the backstory there.
Amazing. And what about Dwight? How you came into the company? How it started?
I think we gotta be, super direct here. Everything that we have done up to this point has been, I'm gonna say, being impulsed by Rick, right? He has been on the virtual space for 2-3 years now, so he was the one that actually got Sam and me into VR. And as soon as we discovered what was, behind the glasses and how the technology evolved and where are we right now, right? So basically I got into this because Rick actually, introduced us to VR. So yeah, basically that's like a summary of the story.
Amazing. So Rick, you introduce everyone to virtual reality. How many people you introduce virtual reality to? Looks like you are too much into it, right?
I'm very into it. I'm super into it. I love VR, virtual reality, because I've been a skydiver for 13 years. and it gives me the same rush. Selling skydiving or convincing people to skydive is almost as difficult as getting people to VR because it's very new, and once people get into it, it gives them a rush. So yeah, I definitely
Well,
have shared
that's
VR.
that's the wildest comparison there. You just straight away
Mhm.
compared virtual reality to skydiving. Awesome. So I was gonna come to that as well because when I read about it that you are also into skydiving, also into acting, stunts, I was like, okay, this man is really awesome. So would love to know how do you relate skydiving and virtual reality? I mean, if you ask anyone, he gonna say that okay, I don't know how it relates, but yeah, would love to listen.
So it's more of a sense of it's how you see it, because it gives you the feeling that you're there. You really forget that it's a simulation or a virtual reality. You really feel that you're there in a different universe. Like for example, Echo VR. You forget that you're not in zero gravity, and it gives people vertigo sometimes. It tricks the mind, or convinces the mind that you're somewhere else. That's what I love about virtual reality. It's another world.
Absolutely, the adrenaline rush of just you just believe that you just gonna hit something in virtual reality. It feels just the same kind of adventurous feel is there. I totally agree to you on this. Let's talk about your individual journeys. As you already said, that Sam and Dwight was into virtual reality because Rick told them to okay, just look at this and we can build something out of it. But Rick, how did you got introduced to virtual reality, and what was your first expression towards it? How this journey started?
How's it what? Excuse me, my bad.
How it's all started?
It all started, I guess, I was introduced to VR by another skydiver in Cleveland Skydiving Center when I was working there, and we started playing Beat Saber. And my main interest for VR was for fitness. I was like into fitness and doing all that. When I introduced VR to Sam and Dwight, they're like, they're very smart techie guys. So they added way more. Like I already knew stuff about VR, but they learned stuff more with them.
So Dwight is into web, right? Dwight is into web. And what you Sam, what you were doing before coming into virtual reality?
Yeah,
Well,
I mean,
basically,
it's mostly web development. Go ahead,
Mhm.
Dwight.
no, don't worry, don't worry. I think it was Sam, right? I misheard. Sorry. Go ahead, Sam.
No, I'm saying it's mostly web development for me and marketing, ideally. And of course, like some design stuff too, but mostly like interactive design because I held a senior interactive design position at a digital marketing agency in New York for like 5-6 years before I started my own company. And after venture started coming around, yeah, it was pretty much I put all my chips on venture, and we're sort of still pushing that through. So it's been super exciting, the whole time, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. But these guys bring a lot of really unique talents to everything that we're doing. Like honestly, it's about the people that are involved in the company. There's plenty of VR companies out there, but what makes us special is our unique, like I guess, skill set, realistically, and how we connect with people.
Absolutely. So, Rick also told that he got introduced to virtual reality by another skydiver himself. So, have you ever seen a skydiving sort of experience into virtual reality? How does it feel? I guess there is something coming up recently, right?
There is. There was a couple of. There's one skydiving experience that we got to test out, which was a simulated landing. It simulated landing a parachute, and it was very, very, very accurate. Very impressive how accurate. So much education and training can be approached through VR. Many, many different things.
Yeah, I have a friend. I have a colleague actually in whose father is in skydiving and all this sort of stuff. So it's these people are seriously crazy and amazingly adventurous. So what about you guys, Droid and Sam? Do you also love skydiving, or do you want to stay? Do you feel fine at ground?
I totally feel fine on the ground. Totally feel fine on the ground. That's okay.
Yeah,
So
I'm like the complete opposite. I'm an anti-skydiver, I guess. I would much prefer not to be out jumping from planes and stuff. We'll leave that to the professionals like Rick over there, for sure.
yeah. So you have this company. You got this started in which year? 2017, I guess.
No, this is a 2021 company
2021.
established.
2021 company.
Yeah.
Pretty recent. So would love to know what kind of experiments you are doing at there, and what kind of products you guys are building.
All right, we'll get ready to get. We're about to start geeking out here, but
Yep.
yeah, Dwight, go ahead. You wanna start some?
No, you're already speaking. I'll go after you. Don't worry. Don't worry. Don't worry.
All right. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on in the space right now. I think most of what we're trying to get done is sort of push this idea of like accessibility, right? Because we see Facebook locking down like almost 60 or 70% of the market as far as like HMDs going into people's households, right? And we realize that there's the Varjo headsets that are coming out too that are a lot more focused on like a high-end clientele, I'd say, or customer. So what we see in the future is just a lot of different headsets on the market. We don't think that it's going to be just one. But Facebook did, there's pros and cons. We always weigh the pros and cons. We're never going to be leaning towards one way or the other. But one thing that they did well was that they made VR accessible, right?
Yep.
$300 headset.
Absolutely.
So we can't deny that that was something that they've done, right? What they want to do in the future, obviously, with the idea of the marketplace, is to kind of control the revenue coming in, right? Similar to the App Store, for example, or something like Google Play. But we see a future where VR is a lot more accessible, right? What that means is that we do think that, in a world where there's 20, 30, 40 different types of headsets you can choose from, what's the one thing that sort of connects everybody together? And it's the internet, right? It's ideally still functioning the way that it was intended, since like the second node was connected in Boston, right? So this idea where we're trying to deliver probably some of the most like high-end experiences that are sort of available, right? But it does require us to relook and reshape the way that a lot of technology is going. So I guess I'm not answering your question too well. I'll let Dwight get into more of like the specific experiences, but
Yeah,
that's
Dwight.
like the sort of concept behind like what we're trying to deliver, and
Totally get it.
making a yeah, we're sort of bending metal when it comes to like cloud tech, what's doable when it comes to sort of development platforms, even like when it comes to JavaScript, we're not just dealing with one set standard JavaScript where there's like 4 or 5 different languages that we're trying to mesh together, as you might say, right? So but yeah, so the task is big, the concept is big, the challenge is big, but we're here to sort of do it for the sake of the culture, really.
Absolutely. So Dwight, what's your take?
Um, yeah, well, my take, I guess I would go with the same, with the same line of Sam, because at first, right, when we started dealing with VR, we saw the potential right now of what VR is, right? So it's an unlimited resources medium, right? So it it brings together a lot of parts. Then when you think about it, sometimes like us, you start with one idea, and then as you start working with that idea, everything expands into other markets, right? For example, like the first thing we actually thought about, like Sam said, was at our core being accessible. So we were trying to team up with a company to build an experience to mass push headsets, right? To get more headsets on the street. Because well, the more headsets that are on the street, the more people are interested, the more people are getting into the ecosystem, the bigger it gets, just like everything else. So when we started working with this at first, we were, going the traditional route and envisioning what that is right now, and how it comes together. At the end of the day, actually, we had in our hands something that we can do whatever we want, right? Like, take a shopping experience or going to a virtual store. If you walk into a virtual store and you see four walls, ground, and a ceiling, it's like walking into a real life store. So why not have a different experience? Why not shop, for example, inside a huge tennis, it's a huge sneaker, right? So there are things that when we were stumbling upon what we were doing, and as people approach us, they actually, sometimes our clients come in, or our prospects, let's say our prospects, right, come in with an idea, like, let's say, hey, can we implement AR in a supermarket, for example? And of course you can, of a thousand different ways. It's just a matter of how to deploy it, when to deploy it, and how to build it, and how we think it through. So we deal, for example, with events on the virtual space. We deal with experiences. And well, when I say with experiences, it's like app things, I guess, different kind of applications that are not necessarily big events. And on top of that, we are dealing with like 4 projects, maybe at this time, you know, where we are ranging from live events to, like, let's say, super niche medical stuff. So we have a whole range of the things that we are doing because, like Sam said, at some point, our skill sets came together at a perfect time where just for us, it makes super sense because we can put all the things that we are into this thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, would love to ask that you guys already had experience on web. So there are a lot of web libraries which are coming into virtual reality. Like WebXR is there. There is 3JS, which does a lot of, and there are so many. Like there are so many good library like ARJS. Do you guys find this any advantage for web developers?
You know what? I'm gonna jump in, right, guys? If you let me, I'm gonna let you go, Sam, afterwards. Though.
Yeah, no,
um,
no worries. Go
the
ahead.
Yeah, I guess right now we're at a point that I know that going forward there should be some. I'm gonna say, I want to say organized ecosystem where right now you have like 8 different render engines, right?
Yep.
Or you have the normal render engines plus proprietary stuff that people are coming, in up with, because we actually talked about this yesterday. We were working with an experience, for example, and that experience left us with the, hey, we can do this like 8 different ways. We have been trying to deploy it, all afternoon until Sam did a breakthrough and got it, working with a new method. And all these things just remind us that at some point it needs to be uniform, right? Because you can go into Unity, you can go into Unreal, you can go into Sumerian, you can go into React. You can basically just program this without a 3D engine directly into Java, right?
Yep.
So, or a version of Java, right? Like Babylon or something like that, right? So there needs to be at some point a unifying, base. I think right now they're pushing for OpenXR as the base for, interacting not just in the web but with the browser, but with different headsets. So at least we're starting to get consensus, because just know this though, and everybody that's out there and listening to this, we are not just on a new space. We're literally, making things up as we go, because there's not even a lot of resources of how to program this regarding, for example, different type of render engines, right? You can find a lot of tutorials on Unreal and on Unity and whatnot, but they're for regular games, right? Because this whole VR platform basically works as a video game. Yeah, we are just trying to work around that and make things that are useful in real life. And and it's not that games are not real life, right? Because who says that, for example, 2 days ago there was a Ariana Grande concert
Yeah,
inside Fortnite? So can you say you were there or you were not there because you had a controller on your hand, right? The only difference is that the Fortnite concert, you're watching it through a screen, but you're interacting with a character through a world, through a controller. Through VR, you're actually there, you know. So, but they're very similar in the perspective from the outside user. But yeah, that's the line I'm gonna go with. Sam, I don't know if you
absolutely,
want to
absolutely.
chime in.
One thing you said really correctly, that sometimes Monopoly is really good because it provides a singular platform for everybody to understand one thing. As you said, OpenXR is taking place. Yeah, Sam, would love to know you about you this.
Yeah, no, honestly, like I agree 100% with what Dwight just said because what we do see is I sent there was pretty much like a list of like 10-point lists, and it was a Reddit thread, and it was another developer trying to figure out what he was sort of looking at in the space when it came to all the different languages. And he's like, so this language is incompatible with this headset, and this language is incompatible with this headset, and they've just eliminated support for this programming language. So you're telling me that I need to, so it was kind of like he was trying to figure it out, but it was also a realization as to how I don't want to say uncertain, but a little bit unstable as far as like the type of like. So we sort of have to be flexible, I think, as virtual reality developers, to be as sort of conceptual as possible, right? We have to just accept the idea that maybe none of these languages will be the ones that we'll be developing in the future, but it's good to just learn as much as you possibly can, I think, and just be sort of open.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Again, it goes back to the web developer sort of standard. If it works, right? So it's like,
If it works, it
yeah,
works. Yeah, if it works for this solution,
yeah.
I don't care if it works anywhere else or not. Yeah, I just gonna take care about this one. Absolutely, totally get that. Yeah. So Rick, do you have any opinions on monopoly in the development platforms?
No, I agree with them completely. Like, this is a new realm, it's a new world, and it's different. It comes from the word metaverse. Like meta is a prefix. It's like beyond or transcending. It's like not a better universe, but it's a universe where we can do more. It's like a metaverse. It's a meta version of our universe now. Like we can't fly here, or we don't have Jedi powers, but in virtual reality, we have meta powers. We're like a meta version of ourselves. We can fly through walls. We can do really incredible stuff.
Absolutely. So when I think of virtual reality experiments, I always think that why we are not doing. I mean, some programs are actually doing those things, but I sometimes think that why we are not doing things which are really not possible in the real world, because that is something supposed to be done on VR, right? So I always think like that. I guess Rick and I think in the same way with when it comes to having the superpower capabilities in virtual reality. Absolutely. So Sam's screen is off for some reason. I don't know. Maybe he's trying to connect. Maybe his camera is off. I don't know. Okay, Sam, can you hear us still? I guess he's connecting back. Let me know if he's getting any trouble in connecting back. Just checking the text. No worries. Sam is sort of connecting back. Sam is typing. You will fill, bro. Okay, Dwight is typing. Okay, no worries. We can go to the next question. I'll ask the same to Sam whenever he comes. All right. So we often take a look at several use cases, and believe me, putting a headset in somebody's head, because I have did it with doctors, and they already are stuck in very critical situations. If I have to put a headset on their heads in those critical situations when they are just about to operate on someone, if I had to put an Microsoft HoloLens on doctor's head, it's adding a lot of pressure to already very tense situation. So there should be a very very valuable thing which I'm just going to do with that particular headset. Are we guys connected? I guess everybody fell off. Wait a second, let me just. Okay, nobody fell off. I guess I joined call.
Yeah, I was having some connection issues there.
Yeah, just joined.
I thought you guys you fell off because everybody got stuck in my screen. I thought you guys fell off, but in reality I was. I'm really sorry. I'm just back.
Oh, no worries.
Okay, because first Sam disappeared, and then everybody was like just stuck, and I was like, what is happening? No worries, I'm gonna I guess I missed something on Sam. Sam was saying something. Sam, can you complete?
Oh, yeah, no, it's all I was saying is like from a web developer standpoint, right? If it works, it works. So we're just embracing as much tech and different programming languages as possible to get these experiences done. But we definitely are bending what's capable, you know, with a lot of the tech that's available to us, right? So we're hoping to integrate a lot of you know, concepts like blockchain technology into some of the VR stuff. We're considering sort of applying some of the new edge cloud tech that's involved with it and applying that to VR too. So so yeah, we're trying our best to sort of bend the rules of what's sort of available to us and then make something incredible out of it. So yeah,
absolutely. So next I want to talk about that when we put a virtual reality headset on somebody's head, because I have did it with the doctors, and doctors are already into such critical situations where their critical thinking should not be stopped or interrupted in any ways. And when you want to put a HoloLens on a doctor's head, it has to be very very valuable information which you are giving through that. So there is always a sophistication versus how much information you want. That sort of ratio need to be taken care of. So what you feel about the good experiences? For example, there are a lot of good experiences which has to be on VR or which are better in VR, but there has to be there could be bad experiences as well, or maybe badly built experiences which basically looks like that it is too much of a job to wear a headset for to do that, and we can simply do it on phone or tablets, and still we are using virtual reality for that. So what are those experiences in your opinion? And would love to know good versus bad experiences in virtual reality if you have seen any.
yeah. If you guys don't mind, I'll chime in quickly on this concept. Like when it comes from a design standpoint, from almost like a VR developer philosophical standpoint, right? We want to we don't necessarily want to do what can already be done in a regular video game, for example, or do what's that can already be done. You know, again, in the world that we already know of static images, and you know, like what is the point? I guess you could say, and we we constantly ask ourselves like, so what, right? Because we like being a bit of critical of our own sort of work, right? So it's like because a lot of the times, and Dwight always mentions this, especially when it comes to sort of development, it's like if we can create anything in virtual reality, right? We have the ability to bend physics. We have the ability to create massively new worlds, super immersive, things that you've never done before. Why do the exact same thing that everybody's already experienced? Again, because we're not trying to create, I guess you'd say, recreate reality virtually. You know, what we're trying to do is optimize reality and make it something more, allowing people to improve their lives in ways that they've never saw was possible. You know, because again, what we see often is people going the easy route and just not doing that, right? So we're definitely looking at it in a completely different light. And as far as like bad experiences, you know, for doctors, we're not going to put them, you know, on a skyscraper in New York, for example, to walk across a plank or anything, you know.
Yeah.
But I think that it's important for us to sort of consider how it's helping, how it's improving people's lives, and if it's going to be something where they look back in, you know, 10 years from now and say, "Wow, this was absolutely incredible," right? So, but Dwight, like Dwight has some great thoughts on this too, as far as like the
Absolutely.
VR design developer philosophy on it.
Yeah, Dwight would love to listen.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, right, there are things that I guess it would be subjective, right, to bad experiences. For example, I don't like roller coasters, right? So I try to stay. Well, I like roller coaster. I don't like roller coasters in VR. You know, because that just adds like triple the motion sickness that I can feel in real world, right? So I don't love that sensation. I know there are a lot of adrenaline junkies and people who love this sensation, right? That they're gonna love these experiences. For me, for example, I don't really, enjoy those type of vertigo inducing things. Other people do. That's totally fine. But I think it's subjective, right? The only let me say, the only unifying thing that we have found to be sometimes a bad thing on VR are social interactions, right? Because everybody forgets, and I'm not gonna emphasize this because it's really important, right? We're sticking to one talking point lately, and it's that you're not putting users in virtual realities. You're putting humans in virtual reality, right? So when you have those things mixed in together with the whole ecosystem, sometimes those social interactions, like walking around VR chat, right, and getting like harassed or screamed at, or those type of things are really a deterrent of how the ecosystems grow. But that comes with the territory, for example, of the experiences that you are designing and the people who are going in. Because one of the examples I'm using right now is it's like VR chat, right? If you go in early at night, VR chat is gonna be full of kids. So you know what to expect of kids, right? They talk loud, they're super energetic, they ask a lot of things, they don't operate on logic, so they're doing a bunch of weird stuff, right? But if you go in VR chat in 3, 4 in the morning, where the crowd is older, right? Because the kids are already sleeping and everything else, you're gonna find a whole different community using this platform, where it has a sense of matureness, and you find really good connections in these spaces. So going to your, like going back to your point, for me, bad experiences are like vertigo inducing and bad social interactions. Beside that, we haven't had, we have more good experiences than bad experiences, right? Because we have experienced stuff that there wouldn't be a way to do them. And this is gonna be like a simple explanation. Like, let's say at some point I actually wanted to be an astronaut, right? So I couldn't go to space, or space exploration or anything else is not available yet, right? But in VR, I have had the chance of like going into the International Space Station, flying around it, seeing this whole thing being photorealistic. And it's something that I wouldn't have done maybe in the next 40, 50 years if I live that long, or if a space exploration keeps going that way and makes like space tourism available or anything else. But right now, the only way to experience, for example, being out on space, it's VR. So I would say, to sum it up, that there are way more good experiences than bad experiences. In my case, I don't like vertigo and I hate bad social interactions, but it's just like normal life.
I guess after this conversation, you're gonna get a lot of Virgin Galactic ads.
Yeah, but
So, Rick, what is your opinion on good versus bad? How do you judge our experience that okay, this is good and this one is bad? Doesn't deserve the VR? And I'm putting so much effort being in a VR sweaty VR headset for this. Yep.
Well, I guess my experiences with VR, I guess I don't expect it to be like actual reality. I expect it to be different.
Yeah.
And so it's like vertigo, not vertigo. I guess motion sickness is something that will make me not like it. For example, I played many games like Echo Arena, Death Lab, that would give you, I guess, motion sickness and never gave me none. But I played Population One, which is another game, and that immediately gave me motion sickness. I took the HMD off, had to even like take a walk. So it depends. I wouldn't know realistically why, because Echo VR you're flying around in zero gravity and I got no vertigo. But in Population One I was just walking around and got like real motion sickness. So I guess we're still learning a bit. um, my approach is I keep saying fitness, but it's just movement, a lot of heavy movement with the motion capture. It's really advanced motion capture that it's like a sport. I played many sports. I did stunts. I did parkour, skydiving, and VR is gnarly. I have a lot of fun playing VR.
Absolutely. So, what you, Rick? Let's start with you. What do you think about marketing in virtual reality? There are plenty of ways and creative ways to do marketing with virtual reality and augmented reality both. AR is being used in marketing by movies, by headsets, like mobile phones, and so many products. So, what is your opinion on marketing? And it's already transforming. We are already seeing the marketing of products being done in either VR or AR. So, where it's going to go?
I think it's going to be very different because we're used to seeing commercials either on a television or radio where you don't really interact with it. You just observe it. You just observe it and you watch it, and that's cool. But in VR, I believe, like malls, you go to a mall and there's people standing around in a booth or something where you can talk to an actual person and you get to interact or whatever. So I believe VR will change because it'll be similar to Clubhouse. You know, when you go to Clubhouse,
Yep.
the reason why we love Clubhouse is because you know for sure there's real people there. That's the main attraction of Clubhouse. It's real people. So VR will be similar. Even though they look like avatars and they got no legs, you still know it's a person. And it gives you that social, whatever it is social you're looking for, VR can do it very well. So I think marketing will change that way.
Absolutely. And do you think the way we design our avatars, can the marketers, the people who are targeting us, can use that information to tell something about us, something about our personality, or something to brand their products?
Yeah, I mean, we in real life, our real body is our avatar, and we're obsessed. People are obsessed with their body and looking good, doing all good. So in VR, people will want to have a good appearance, to be able to move around that market, of course.
So yeah, I guess the way we design our avatar tells a lot about us as well. So Sam and Dwight, what are your opinions? Let's start with Sam.
Uh, yeah, when it comes to marketing and VR, I always look at it from like a storytelling perspective as far as marketing goes, because brands will finally be able to sort of, I say, give back to their customers and their consumers that have supported their businesses for so long, right? And one of the companies that comes to mind is Starbucks, for example, or these brands and these companies with very massive followings that for the most part have just done the very basic, right, which is deliver coffee, right, or
Absolutely.
provide some sort of like product. But I do think that there is a way to sort of expand what that experience means, what the relationship to the business means from the consumer standpoint, right? And allow them to enter spaces where they might find productive, for example, right? And allow them to sort of continue to cultivate that, I guess, following or like that mass loyalty from a consumer standpoint in virtual reality with much more immersive experiences, right? That probably have never been done before. So um, we kind of look at anytime we say something can be done, we always say, then what else can we add to it, right? So, for example, it's easy to do sort of like a 3D walkthrough, right? Or let's just say a virtual reality walkthrough of a space. But what if you can actually purchase coffee from there? What if it was a live, sort of assistant there that was ready to sort of help you? What if that person was behind an avatar, for example? Because we see a lot of that happening now too. Um, what if you could also sort of customize your avatar with, similar sort of, assets that come from this business, right? And then we continue. By the time we get down the list, we're looking at a whole different way of interacting with brands and businesses and stuff. So, from a storytelling perspective, yeah, absolutely. And I know I'm missing a little bit about the data standpoint. Dwight is our data dude, so like he'll be able to like get into that more. But I always look at it from like an emotional standpoint, from how people can feel, right, when when they can drive the new Ferrari instead of just looking at it through a window, or an
Yeah.
advertisement on the internet. What if you could actually step into the car in an ultra high realistic environment and live out their dream, which is my dream, of just opening up a car on like on a tarmac on an airport or something with no restrictions, that's the feeling that we're hoping to get to. Are we there yet? Almost, because of
You
how.
raised a very interesting point that a biggest conversion factor in buying a car is actually the test drive, and we know that we cannot, the stores cannot give test drive to every customer. It's not possible. They have to see if the buyer is really interested or not and things like that. But in VR you can do it and everybody can take a look. They can look closely. We look at images which are really not real, and imagine looking at your car and sitting in your car before actually buying it and ordering it from the same app. So I guess this is a very good use case.
All right. All right. No, I don't know if anybody was gonna chime in a little bit more. Yeah, but Avi, no, yeah, from a marketing standpoint, we actually have this conversation every Friday because we get invited to another summit where we talk about marketing frequently because there are a bunch of marketers, right? And they are approaching us on how they are gonna be, I'm gonna say, approaching this space going forward because since it's new, right? They still don't know how to work it out, right? So I'm saying this because my last recommendation for them was you need to start thinking on 3D, right? Because these experiences can range from something really simple as making a 3D sweater to actually building out a whole virtual reality universe, right? So going into that marketing point, I would just say that it's a basis of how creative can you get and how to deliver the best experiences. That is what people are gonna go after. And from a data gathering perspective, we have found out that this is gonna sound good and bad, right? But you can gather so much information from the experiences that you couldn't gather before, that I would say that going forward, yeah, privacy things should be implemented in some kind of manners. Because one of the, for example, I've got to bring this up because it's super important. There are a few headsets out there that have eye tracking, and that's one of the things we've been looking at lately. But it's from the research standpoint that if we can read your eye, Abby, we can actually, place your age, your body type, your weight, your culture background, hidden maybe illnesses. There's so much information that you can get from the eyes, and not just that. For example, imagine that you're moving in a 3D space constantly. one thing you can't do right now on regular, for example, social media or social media interactions on the internet, I guess, would be that I would know exactly where you're going, how you're getting there, and how you're moving. So I can actually do a heat map of you dealing in virtual reality and see, not just your best interest, how much time you spent in there and where you went. Because right now we have indicator, right? Like the internet. Oh, I went to this link and that link took me to another link and whatnot, and you can actually follow a path, but you can't actually see yourself on a 3D space walking and saying, "All right, he spent 5 minutes on the, on that bookshelf, and he took out that book and he walked back and forth." So every time he comes into this world, that's the most important. That's the first thing he goes to and spends X amount of time there, and he's doing, and he's walking 20 feet back and forth while he's reading that book. So that's something that we couldn't do before. So, but that's something we actually, could employ going into the future. Because, like I said, at some point, this is not just a new tech; it's a whole new territory. That every time we find something out, we sit down, we look at it, and since we are not one or two people, right? We are a company of three founders. We actually, have these discussions of being like the good cop and bad cop. Like Sam said, at one point I may bring something to the table, right? And let's say something wild like, "Yo, Sam, I made a Tyrannosaurus Rex, and I made it work and it roars." And Sam, goes and say, "So what?" Because they already did on Jurassic Park Tyrannosaurus Rex. We have seen dinosaurs on TV all our life, so it would be a totally whole different thing. That it would be like, "No, bro, I did a T-Rex on VR and I get it roaded, and we went to like Saturn." That's where that's where we actually go in and step in, because it's like, yeah, so what, you can do this, but there's another benefit for you doing it because it's cool, right? So these are things that usually pop up when we are designing, deploying, thinking about concepts, and going forward, how it all fits in. And does it have a real function? Does it works? Is it good? So yeah, basically that would be it though.
Amazing. You said it really correctly. It's just not a new tech, it's a new territory. Wow, new territory to conquer. And so, Rick, we discussed about this privacy thing as well. Virtual reality headsets, and when they are coming with a lot of subsidized amount, because the kind of processor they are using, it's much more than the cost of the headset itself. I'm talking about the Facebook Quest 2. So, let's talk about the kind of information they're gonna gather and how they're gonna sell, and is it also going to be any harmful thing about it, or is it something to concern them?
It can be viewed both ways. It can be good or bad because it does have 4 cameras, each HMD. So technically, you could view it as, well, we're being monitored and we're being watched, but it's more of a safety thing. Like, everything will be safer in the sense that everything will be watched and monitored, and the biometrics. So it's technically a new culture, and we already have cell phones. We already have computers. Like, everything's already being watched. Like, that's not like anything's going to change. So instead of seeing the negative, I see this as it's like, it's weird comparison, but having HMD is like having police everywhere, and police are safe because it'll somehow integrate with police, I think, to make it just safer all around instead of invasion of privacy and all this and that. We people fight so much for the privacy, yet they write everything online. So it's different. This is such a new world, and I think it'll make us a stronger type of species.
Absolutely. So if we talk like 10 years back, that you're gonna have everything online, and now people do it. It's called Instagram. They have every personal information online. Sam, so what is your idea how the VR is going to change the privacy situation, since it's tracking all the body movement, all your health vitals, everything is there. So how are you gonna how somebody can misuse this information, and what is a good use for this?
Yeah, I think Dwight touched on it, Rick touched on it for like briefly, and it's this idea of like, what do you do with the data, right? I think that if it's data is a tool like most of the other things that we interact with in everyday life, right? And we have to consider like the ethical ways of utilizing that tool to improve our daily lives, right? So, uh, like Dwight mentioned, from a medical standpoint, you being able to find out that you might not be sort of as healthy as you might have considered before might be a good use case for what data can do for you, right? Um, but again, we get into other ways where it's like we need to we're beyond, I think, the stage of saying I do not want my data anywhere, right? That's just not realistic
That's
anymore.
not
And
possible.
I'm sorry to break the news to anyone, but it's just not, right? We're running around with cell phones that have higher processing capabilities than anything that we've ever seen before. And it's we can turn off all the privacy settings, and then our email will be the one leaking all our sort of data information. So it's like we have to shift away from the data for sale standpoint and look at it as embracing our own data, and making it something that can improve our everyday lives. And I do think that in VR that's possible, sort of shifting the idea of like, instead of hiding or shying away from it, taking responsibility and ownership of our data so that we can do something incredible with it, So from a privacy standpoint, I think that the sort of privacy is more of like a personal responsibility to, use our data wisely, And I think that we need more companies in the space that consider what this looks like. And we do hope that we are one of the first companies in the space that realize this. And instead of doing like platforms that are strictly to sell data, we look at it from a more of a shifting the culture and the way that people sort of interact with their data, I'd say. So, good or bad, I'm not quite sure. I guess it depends on how you use it, for sure.
Absolutely. So, Dwight, what is your opinion on what kind of headset you gonna prefer? One which is very expensive, but it doesn't leak the data. It keeps everything on the device, and the other one which is like normal headset and it sells data. Anybody can use your data, and you have all those concerns so what do you prefer? Because Sam already said that if you think that your data could be private in some ways, it's not possible anymore.
Okay. This is the thing, though. I'm gonna circle back to the question, right? But I want to add something, like,
Surely.
because it goes along the land. I mean, it goes with what we're talking, not the land. I don't know why I say land though. So when you go outside, Abby, do you disappear, or is what I'm trying to say? When you walk out the door right now, let's say that you finish this podcast and you go out your door and you're gonna go to the supermarket, are you invisible to other people?
No, absolutely not. Not possible.
Well, right. So if you go to a store and you steal something and there's a lot of people around you, they're gonna see you doing it, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. So I bring this point up because most I know this discussion about privacy, it comes in all shapes and form, but in real life, for example, when you walk in through a door and somebody sees you, they see your height, they see your face, they can guess your age, they can guess what's your social status by how you are clothed and everything else, right? So I guess the privacy discussions, when it's brought to the table, it's a matter of not realizing, like how the data is presented and what things could be done for in this space. When I say this is like you go to a market, right, and somebody's gonna try to sell you something. They might know you that you might like it because you might have something in your cart that it's similar, right? So on this space, it goes along that way. Now, the data part in the headsets, bro. That's gonna depend, I'm gonna say, on the developers of the experiences, right? Because, for example, if we like what we are trying to deploy lately, it can be accessed through a headset. So it's not necessarily being tracked by what I said, by a headset. No, by a browser. That's what I want to say. What we're deploying right now, it can be accessed through a browser. So that information, even though you're seeing it through the headset not it's not necessarily picking anything up because we are not connecting. It's not the same path that all the other experiences uses. So what I'm saying that is that when we secure a website and you go into our website, the headset basically stops tracking what you're doing and you're just experiencing what it's on the headset, right? So it could be an Oculus that it's owned by Facebook and they can theoretically, do what Facebook do and mine all the data through all the apps, right? But there comes a point that when you open up, and I'm gonna circle back to the first question, right? When you open up platforms like OpenXR and you have the ability of designing experiences that can be accessed from any headset, you get to a point where you discover, for example, and this is gonna sound weird, not weird. Sam said it before, but I'm gonna bring it from another standpoint. When you, for example, want to secure data in a virtual world, one of the things that we're looking at is securing them through the blockchain, right? So when we are putting the blockchain and we are integrating this into our already secure platform, you are the sole owner of that information. But it's the same as having a wallet, right? If you lose your keys to your wallet or you lose your wallet, you lose your information. So at some point where what I'm trying to say is I don't mind the headset. I mind the experiences because the experiences are going to be in charge of your information. So, because today, for example, yeah, Quest are being mass adopted. We totally super understand that, right? But we don't know if that's going to be the case tomorrow, right? Tomorrow, let's say somebody else comes in with a new killer headset that doesn't even record anything that you do. That's going to ultimately, the privacy part is going to reside on the experiences that you're going to be going and yourself, and how much you want to expose of yourself to the virtual world or the regular world, right? It's like you said, it's totally like social media. Why are we, going after privacy when you basically upload all your day between between Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, and people already see your living room. These companies already maybe have mapped your whole house, and you're thinking about like, hey, why should privacy? There's no such thing anymore, and I don't think privacy has existed besides you being totally alone in a room where nobody can watch you. Besides that, if you go out and have a normal interaction, you're being watched. Your privacy is in line, and that I'm talking about the real world. So that's my whole complex thought around that. Sorry.
Yeah, and if you don't mind me like chiming in quickly, like
Sure,
I
sure.
think that it's again just making people bringing the ownership of data that already exists out in the modern world and bringing it back into the hands of people that it belongs to, right? So it's not to say that no data exists, because that's just not true. Like Dwight mentioned, you go out buy a slice of pizza in New York City, that's you're a number one. They walk into that store, right? That's data. But we just want to bring that data back so that it's actually helping people. So it's not to say that we're looking at things the same as the other companies have been. We're saying that we're rethinking what it means to sort of be the sole proprietor of your own data, and be able to use it in ways that you feel comfortable with and that will improve your life if you decide to do something like that. So that's sort of like the route I believe that we're taking for sure.
Yeah. So this data is, I'm getting a lot of Edward Norton voice kind of feeling here. So going to talk about that, this data is basically not being used to cheat you in certain ways, or not going to be used for for example, to track you or spy on you. This data is used for target you in certain ways, so that they could sell you some products which are which match to your behavior, to understand you more, so that we can sell you more. Neil deGrasse Tyson said something about this same issue, that when this actually is snatching the my will to choose. Now an algorithm is deciding that what is good for me and what is not good for me, and the amount of exploration I could have had while looking for that one product, I might have stepped upon to 10 different products, and I might tune to some other product some more. Maybe sometimes human doesn't even know that what they're actually looking for, and that's how learning happens. That's how we stumbled upon to something which we never thought of. Like Rick, who's a skydiving expert, stumbling upon virtual reality. It in form of algorithm, it could not happen, because we always going to give him something which is related to skydiving. Okay, Rick, buy this gear, this is going to help you buy this kind of parachute or whatever, I don't know what. It's the algorithm never gonna show Rick the virtual reality headset ad, and that's gonna prevent him getting into virtual reality. So what is your opinion on this thing going on, which is stopping us from exploration, algorithms versus human growth? What is your opinion on this? Yeah, start with Drake.
My opinion with what? My bad, I didn't catch the last one.
Yeah, so I was talking about how the algorithm, the marketing agencies behind those algorithms who are analyzing our data, are stopping us from exploring new things.
Do you think that the data is stopping us from exploring new things?
Yeah.
Well, I guess Dwight and Sam would be better at that. I don't know how.
Dwight, Sam, did you get that question?
Yeah.
Yeah. Go, Sam. Don't worry.
Yeah. So I'm gonna, and this is, and like maybe everybody forgives me later for doing, but so let's get into like the conceptual stuff, right? And so let's just look at things differently. So it's an assumption, of course, that we're being prevented from exploring or sort of viewing the world because of data collection. But I'd say that I think that we need to sort of just, I think we need to push beyond what we've known to be capable as far as humanity goes. We see, billionaires going into space now, and they've managed to go like, a few miles above the sort of things that are not quite, I guess you'd say, I personally don't find as interesting or as big of an accomplishment as maybe a few other people do, because of course there's a big celebrity status when it comes to tech and these billionaires, for example, right? But I do think that it goes down to like who we are as a humanity, and I think we need to define that, right? I don't think we have quite yet, I think that with virtual reality and a lot of other technologies that exist, we have the ability to shape what's possible, right? We have the ability to shape the future of technology, the future of what humanity can be. But if we don't take responsibility and actually put in motion the things that we care about and prioritize those things, then we'll never see it come to fruition, right? These companies are working overnight like we are, but we're sort of, I just want to say that it's, I just feel like we need to be more proactive as a humanity and really make these tough decisions as to like what we want to see in the world in the next 5 to 10 years, what we want to prioritize. And it's important for more companies to come up, more people like us to sit together and discuss things as far as like what we want to see. The beauty about virtual reality is that we have the ability to shape what the future of VR looks like. This is still very new territory, So it's really up to us to push the culture and to create something that works for everyone, that's inclusive, that creating safe spaces for people to really be able to express themselves and ultimately improve their lives. So I think I always bring it back to personal responsibility, embracing that. for sure.
Makes sense. Dwight, so you want to talk about algorithm versus exploration?
Um, Espérate. Whoa, wait. Sorry. We gotta go back to the question though.
So I was talking that Neil deGrasse Tyson once said that it's a the algorithms, they are stealing the very choices we make, because the marketing and the algorithms are providing you with the number of things. Okay, you're gonna like this, you're gonna like this, and they are studying our behavior. But how exploration happens is very different. Exploration happens when you try to go and look for something and you find something else. And that's how you came to realize, okay, this thing exists, or there's a whole industry about these things, and you get into it. So how what do you feel about this? If everything's gonna come to you without searching for it, is it going to be healthy?
Gonna be a mix of everything, right? Like up to this point. And I say this because people are curious, right? And some people want to tell you what to buy and you're going to go and explore it, right? But during that exploration, you might find something else interesting and divert, right? So it's not necessary, people are, it's, if you look, if we look at the whole concept, TV, radio, even in person, people get you to buy things, right? So when you go like a car salesman, he goes after what you like. Oh, you like this type of color on your car. You like this type of car. You like that type of car. So when you tell him, for example, that you're looking for like a sports car that is like black, like he's gonna take you to a sports car that's black, right? But walking maybe the showroom, you see a new electric SUV, and you want to see that. So in that regard, I don't think someone is gonna control exactly what and how my tastes are gonna work, because just from the standpoint of it, if I don't like something, I don't like something, right? So they might try to sell me whatever the heck they want. I just won't be interested in it. But they are getting the information of what I am interested in and selling me things that go along my interest, right? So being, in that type of situation, we are gonna get, yeah, things, like ads and everything else. But it's the same when you go outside, you see billboards, you see ads on the side of buildings, people give you flyers. So I think all these things at the end in virtual reality are gonna fill in a bucket where, like Reed, I think Reed said it at some point, or Sam, and I actually, brushed upon this. We are introducing humans to virtual reality. They're not users, they are not characters, they're not players, right? So when you introduce humanity into these type of spaces, because we have seen it, for example, like, my bad, I'm diverting, to different subjects, but they all align. Like, one of the things we have thought, for example, when you are alive and you are a human, what are human things you do, right? What do you need? If you look through civilizations, what are things that do not change about civilization? For example, I'm going to give you one simple thing. Markets have always been there. It doesn't matter if you're in a village in, X country, or totally on the other side of the world. While there's a group of people, there's always gonna be a market. And when I say a market, it's like a food market, right? Because some people are gonna go buy, after some type of vegetable, or they're gonna go hunting and bring some type of meat back, or they're gonna cultivate something else. And there's always gonna be a gathering of offerings, and people are gonna go there. You see this throughout all civilizations. Right now, our modern example of that would be like malls, right? So we go to a mall or we go to a store, but it keeps being a market. So it doesn't matter the size and how you will, adorn it or, make it more bigger or grandeur, but it keeps being a market. So the markets in VR, it's gonna work exactly the same way, but it's gonna be mixed with what we already know. For example, we are gonna go to a market. I mean, get this right. I'm sorry to everyone because my thoughts are all disjointed, but they align. Get this. When we built our website, right? And after we built our website, we went in and built a virtual reality gallery. So at some point, we had a virtual reality gallery, and we said, hey, it would be super cool to meet with clients in our business, in our conference room inside the gallery. And at some point, we started putting up things around the gallery and whatnot. And we brought in a PDF of the website and we put it super huge on the middle of the gallery, right? And we were like, oh, it would be super cool if people saw our webpage there and read it and whatnot. And suddenly, we literally at the same time took a step back, looked around, and said, how does a website works on virtual reality? And I'm not talking about accessing it through a browser or through the regular means. It's if I'm not anymore on a 2D world, how does a website looks on virtual reality on a 3D world? How do you convert that, right? We were inside the answer for at least a few hours until we realized that, you know, take out the website that we uploaded on PDF and let's just put all the text and pictures on the walls. So when people come into our virtual gallery, we're not just gonna be showcasing our work. They're gonna be inside our webpage with us while we're explaining what we are, who we are, what we do. So they are getting a whole different perspective of not just visiting our website. It's visiting our website in virtual reality and having us in the room explaining all the things that we actually do, just like a business meeting, right? So when we put all these things together, we come up to this point where, we just keep imagining or seeing how this stuff would work going forward.
Right now we can see a lot of things which were not capable, especially in 2020, like collaborative meetings and things like that. So these are being possible. The virtual offices are there. I know I've given so many interviews on virtual reality. We have did so many podcasts on virtual reality and so many things in within the virtual reality headsets. So in future, how do you see the virtual reality transforming the society and the way we interact with the real world? How everybody gonna get social and get through this interactive medium? So yeah, what are your thoughts on this, Rick?
So I think one of the things that might change is passwords and accounts will be from the past. Because with biometrics, the HMD will know it's you for sure. So you won't need a headset you won't need a password to tell. It's like an ID. Everybody says, we all need a license. It doesn't matter how free you think you are. Everybody needs a license. And in the future, everybody's going to need a headset. Not need a headset, but everything will be virtual in the sense that instead of needing an ID, the HMD will just, it's like a dog, it smells you and it knows it's you. I'm sure virtual reality will, the data of us will be so much that it'll know it's you even by your breathing, your pulse, your eye movement, your head movement. It will know everything. It won't need you to put a password in. I think that'll give security, because the only people that will be able to hack you are people that are going to be able to impersonate you perfectly, your height, your tone of voice. So things will change, I think.
Absolutely, and we can already see this happening. The way we make payments. it has to be super secure, and now we don't even put any password when we are making payments. A lot of time it's just our face ID or thumbprints or something like that. Biometrics is already taking place. Sam, what is your opinion about how VR is going to change the way of interaction?
Yeah, from an from an interaction standpoint, I think we're just gonna have much more. I guess you'd say similar to the experiences we have now, where we use the internet to sort of reach out to family members and other people around the world. I think that we'll be just amplifying that, and just being able to sort of connect with each other, not just voice and video, which can sometimes be great, but it's not the only thing that we would want to do. Maybe I might be able to get a basketball game with a relative that's based in Germany, someplace in Europe or something. So it's just, it's again optimizing, improving, amplifying the ways that we connect already in new ways that was never pretty much possible before. Right? Like again, breaking the laws of what we understand to be, might be boundaries or borders or whatever, and just doing something incredible with it. Because something as small as you playing, a game of a game of soccer, for example, in VR with your family members down in South America or something. It's like that alone could change your whole perspective on technology, and even your week, your month, or maybe even your year, right? For some people, so things like this are possible just from a very, and I know that I didn't go with the super high tech, response that maybe some, which would probably be my go-to thing. But honestly, I think that it just comes down to a much more humane level, right? Yeah, and VR can be a way that connects us to our loved ones in a much more fun and interesting way, I'd say.
Amazing. Dwight, what is your opinion how the future is going to change?
I think my biggest thought on this is that interactions are gonna be made better. And when I say better, is that if you never had, not you, someone in the public, or someone that's watching this podcast, if you have never had a virtual reality business meeting, I'm actually encouraging you to try it, because I have never been able, for example, to translate my train of thought on real life unless I had a computer, right? Because I'm a designer at heart. So I think very abstractly, and I know exactly what something may seem like or may look like, or trying to explain someone that I actually need almost to, to like draw in the air like what I'm gonna do. But VR actually gives me the ability of, let's say I'm gonna design a production line, and they can see me right in their faces, drawing a plane, telling them, yo, this machine's gonna be here, this machine's gonna be here, this is gonna be the compressor, this is gonna be the belt, and this is the way it's gonna be. So you're gonna see like my thought process going into that. And it's just the interactions that are gonna make this great, because it's not just for business, but like Sam said, right now, yeah, you're, for example, in another country, right? So at some point we are interacting through the screen and whatnot. But if we would have went into VR, right, I could have shook your hand, seen right behind you. You could have seen all the movements I do, all the twitching and we do and stuff. So it just becomes more immersive. And after like 2-3 minutes, you totally forget that you're in a virtual reality space. You're totally right in there with you, and we are having like a super, regular human life-like interaction. So going forward, the biggest thing, it's going to be for real how we interact with everyone and the things around us.
Absolutely. You raised a very beautiful point that there are a lot of judgments, or there may be a lot of hesitation of some people that, okay, I'm going to talk to this. It's a big thing. and they all just gonna vanish with the use of virtual reality meetings and things like that. So it's a beautiful thought. Lastly, it's the last thing. What is your opinion of people who are starting now with virtual reality, and what you gonna give them message? Is it already too late or too early? So yeah, a message for people who want to come into virtual reality industry. Is the future bright? Yeah, let's start with Rick.
So, um, I'll say a couple of things. When you start in virtual reality, don't skip the tutorials. The tutorials are your friend. They're gonna help you. Don't skip them. Roller coaster. Go to a real roller coaster in the real world. It's more fun. It's or at least not your first time. Explore around the metaverse a while. Once you're comfortable, then you can try the roller coaster or the fishing game. You know, because I tell people stuff that you can do in real life, do it in real life because the metaverse is for superpowers. That's my message to all you new virtual reality people. I hope you stay here.
Yeah. Sam.
Yeah, I'd say we can tell you things that the VR space is bright for the future, but if you don't believe us, then believe Fang like Facebook, Apple, Netflix, Google, and just look at their job openings in virtual reality, right? And let the sort of numbers speak for themselves. So like Facebook I think is hiring 700 new employees in the VR space. Netflix is recruiting, like they're trying to put together a dream team for like the Olympic basketball or something like that, and recruiting talent from Oculus itself. So we just have to realize that again, we could say it, you don't necessarily have to put all your chips on what we're saying, but if Google is, they can sort of see what they're doing in the space and realize that this is going to be huge. And for people that are coming into this space, I just challenge them to think differently. Challenge them to sort of look at design and development, and just realize you can do practically anything as long as you put your mind to it. Quite literally in virtual reality.
Absolutely. Totally agree. The amount of people they are hiring, it's really, they are building huge products. Dwight, what is your opinion on the future of VR tech and yeah, the message to people who are coming into it?
Yeah, I think there was something about the timing in the original question, right? So I don't think, anybody that's entering the VR space right now, it's entering at the right time. I don't, and when I say this is we, like Sam said, I deal with data, right? So data is my thing because it's my pulse on what's going not just on the market, but it kind of predicts where the markets are going. So it's not just about the present, it's also about the future. So what we have been seeing, for example, and if we jump into a little bit of virtual reality history really fast, like in 2015, let's say 2014, 2015, VR started gathering a lot of attention really fast. So there was a bubble that formed starting on like 2016, where it expanded and suddenly everything stopped in 2018 because the entry barriers to the market were super huge. You needed to be tethered to a computer. You need a super good computer. The headsets were super expensive. There was a lot of things that were still trying to be figured out. But in 2021, and I'm gonna bring in the pandemic here because the pandemic actually accelerated the adoption of new technologies. For example, nobody was used to, like, if somebody would have told me in 2019 that I was gonna hold all my business meeting in 2020 via Zoom or Skype or Teams, I would have said, no, bro, that doesn't work like that, right? So we solely has had this whole cultural change where remote, where work has become remote, where people are comfortable now using more technology because, we've been in this pandemic thing for a year and a half now, and we are, stuck at home at, at some capacity, or limiting our outings because, there's still stuff going on, right? But if the timing is right, and we're looking at the how things are evolving right now in 2021, it's the right moment for VR. And it's not just, all the things I just said. You see key players like Facebook pushing forward the technology. You see how they have sold around 10 million headsets in like 10 months, right? You see how the use of VR doubled. Now it's a healthy time to get into the market to develop all this type of things, because I'm gonna bring an interesting correlation. At least, from all the headsets that are out there, the Quest 2 has sold as much units as the iPhone 3G did. So why am I comparing this? Both of these devices are second generation devices. So we actually have a comparison of the Quest being the second version of the original Quest and Rift, and we have the iPhone 3G being the successor to the original iPhone. So they're both very similar, and their adoption rate, it's going, a long way. When I use history to look at all these type of things, recently I have told people VR is in the stage of like the internet in 1996, like in 1994, or mobile devices in 2006. So we are on the verge of getting to mass adoption. And you see that because you start seeing conversations around VR. You start seeing, for example, the Cannes Film Festival having 10, 12, 20 movies in VR. You see how slowly it's creeping up from all sides of different companies that are venturing into, for example, experiences. The biggest telecom on the United States, or one of the biggest ones, it's like, for example, Verizon, right? So they have been providing funding for a fashion virtual reality exhibition inside the Museum of Other Realities. So we are already seeing key players moving into spots, like Sam said, like Facebook. Facebook moved their whole product designer from Instagram to VR. They moved a lot of the heads of different departments that were super successful to VR. So they're seeing that. And, like any other market, if you see a company thriving and putting out as much headsets as Facebook out there, and they proving that, for example, it can be done, and people want this technology, other companies are gonna follow suit, in a matter of seconds. We are guessing, for example, maybe Apple, it's reworking how they are, aboard this whole virtual reality thing. Because if we looked at how they work, they like re-engineer their things, backwards. So, and that's kind of redundant, right? But when I say this, they're, for example, first figuring out how to add virtual reality sound. And when I say virtual reality sound, I'm not saying anything more than spatial sound, right? They released a whole new spatial audio thing that it's amazing. It's like virtual reality for your ears. So, and when you looked at how they have deployed, for example, 3D capture through an iPhone, iPhone 12 Pro has LiDAR radars. What do the radar radars do? They register volumetric spaces and uploaded them, right? So when you look at everything they're doing, it's like they are doing VR backwards, but they are just trying to integrate something going forward until they release their headset, right? So it's gonna be a killer headset. But my main point was, when you see a company, even though a lot of people disregard Facebook for whatever the heck they want to, right? So that's cool. But if you look at at it from the business standpoint, they set a precedent that, Google's going to go after them, Apple's going to go after them. They prove the market's hungry for this. If you walk around, for example, here in the States, around stands that sell headsets, they're always empty. So they're getting them and they're selling them as fast as they're getting them, right? So people have, been dealing with this. For example, even myself, I have encountered people and they have told me, oh yeah, my kids have two of those headsets at home. They have never talked about it, right? But they have them at their homes. And it's kind of weird how it's slowly creeping up. It's not weird and it's not bad, but it's slowly creeping into society to a point like the mobile phones did, right? Suddenly you were having a landline connected to a wall. The next thing you have a supercomputer in your hands, 15 years later. So VR is exactly where it needs to be in 2021, where we are about to hit, mass adoption, or like I said this once, we are about to go supernova. So anyone that comes into this space right now as a development or as a developer, or from like a business stand side, it's the perfect time to get into VR because it's the Wild West. We are, the ones that rule the Wild West are the ones that got there first.
Absolutely, a lot of insane details.
Yeah.
So to summarize, Rick told that please read tutorials before you get into this. Sam said that a lot of companies are already hiring, and so you must get the idea that how the situation is. And Dwight said that okay, this is the correct time to get into it because the pandemic has already raised the adoption and everything. And he has given us such great data points to track the growth, track the success of virtual reality headsets. So let's close it. And before closing it, what are your favorite experiences into virtual reality? So yeah, starting from Rick, what is your favorite experience to end it on a light note?
I guess I have to say two. It would be Beat Saber and Echo Arena. Those are the two. I can't separate because Beat Saber made me obsessed with VR, but Echo Arena made me an addict. So I love both.
Absolutely, you are fitness freak. Yeah. So Sam Bell, here we go.
Oh yeah. I think you guys froze. Oh wait, there we are. Yeah, I think for me it's a very simple sort of concept, but it's a browser-based archery game where you got like waves of orcs coming at you, and it just gets harder and harder and harder. So I literally am like right there as the development team is like putting it together, and they'll just release like a 10-foot orc like that's bigger than my actual physical space in front of me, like that. And then I've got to like try to get this orc out with a bow and arrow. So all browser based. So it's a simple experience, but it's a lot of fun. So that's where I'm at right now.
Archery games are always amazing. Yeah, Dwight.
Yeah.
I also have two, right? So I have my high adrenaline one. It's called Pistol Whip. I love it.
Yeah.
It's super good. The soundtrack's just amazing. And the other thing I really love, I mentioned this before just in passing, right? But it's the Museum of Other Realities. That's not a standalone, that's on PC VR. It's a little bit harder to get into because you need to download Steam and get the experience or that game or experience or, that application. But the museum's really good and the experiences are really great. And I actually have to give out props to them because I would name them the first actual virtual reality museum in virtual reality, right? So they don't have just painting, they have amazing things inside VR that you can only do on VR. They have like this flying, it has a name, I think it's called like a blurb, and it's like a flowing liquid mass and it's like metal and everything reflects on it. When you see it moving on space, it's super cool. I mean, but it has stuff like that you wouldn't normally find anything anywhere else. So yeah, Pistol Whip and the Museum of Other Realities.
These are some pretty awesome recommendations. I would also like to add my favorite two. One is Super Hot. I wish they come up with the next version of this. Super Hot is amazing. Another one I loved is Hyper Dash. Hyper Dash is pretty cool. Hyper Dash is very competitive, I would say. Dwight, where I could find this Museum of Other Realities on PCVR? Where does it exist? In which store?
If you look into the Steam store, you type in the Museum of Other Realities, and it's gonna be there. I think usually you need to pay for it, but if you're, following them, they do sometimes like a free open month where you can just download it during that period and go in. But please support the developers, right? So if you can actually, do something and help them out, it'd be great, because it's just amazing. For real, not joking. It's one of the most amazing experiences I've had in VR, and we have jumped in 1,000 worlds in VR chat and seen a lot of great things. But the museum just has that museum quality thing to it, where it allows you to, I don't know, we have done things we never done before. For example, there was this little forest, there was like a little column with a forest on top of it, like tiny, like this big, right? So it had a little fire in it and some figures moving. We could actually jump into the forest and it became big and everything else. That was just super weird and cool, and was something I have not done before. So yeah, Steam VR, look for the Museum of Other Realities.
Absolutely fantastic opinions. These are some amazing. Gonna try all of them. Thank you, Sam, Rick, and Dwight, for coming on the XR podcast. I really love today's show. It's really an honor and pleasure to have you. And we did some really amazing conversation about virtual reality. And thanks for coming on the show. It's early morning. You guys are here. Thank you, and have a great day, guys.
Same to you. Have a super nice
See ya.
day or evening. Bye.
Sure. Keep in touch, and we'll connect later. Adios.
Okay.
Adios.
Later.
It was such a cool conversation. I enjoyed it thoroughly. We discussed so many deep points. We discussed so many lighter points, such as recommendations. It was such an amazing and insightful conversation about virtual reality. And we're going to see you next week with similarly interesting guests. So stay tuned to XR Podcast. Subscribe to our channel. Tell us in the comment section what you like about this conversation and what you don't like about this conversation. And we're going to see you next week.